Fractions to decimal. Every single fraction known to man can be changed to a decimal. All fractions can be made decimals. How, you ask? Some of them you already know. For example, you can think in terms of money. The fraction 1/4, a quarter of a dollar, is how much is a quarter worth? Now, hopefully you are old enough to know this. It's 25 cents. 3/4 of a dollar is 75 cents. Ones you probably don't know so well maybe would be 3/5. No, we're not doing percents, we're doing decimals. It's 0.6. Now, with this one, it's not so bad. There are two different ways, probably more, I don't know, two different ways that you can get the decimal 0.6 from 3/5. Anybody care to share? Nobody? First way is this. Decimals are in tenths, hundredths, and thousands. So if you can take 3/5 and tell me how many tenths it is, that number there is going to be the decimal. Well, 3/5 is how many tenths? Multiply both top and bottom by 2, it's 6/10. That's what it is. Okay, or even if it was something like this, if you had 17/25. Now you can't change that into tenths, but you can change it into 100. How do you change 25 to 100? Alex?
Multiply by 4.
Multiply by 4. So you multiply the top by 4, you end up with 68. So my answer is in decimal form 68/100ths, which is 0.68, 68/100ths. But, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, what about 3/8? Because you can't change an 8 into a 10 or 100. You actually can change it into 1,000, but at some point we have to stop that vicious, ugly stuff, and we have to decide, how can you change 3/8 to a decimal? Awkward silence at best. Let me ask you a question. What is this fraction changed to? What's that simplified?
2.
Why is it 2? Because 10 divided by 5 is 2. A fraction is nothing more than a glorified division problem, and that's what you have to look at this as. This is a glorified division problem as well. 8 cut into 3 pieces, or 3 out of 8 pieces, or whatever. You just, to change this, here, let's write this. To change any fraction to a decimal, all you need to do is divide the bottom into the top. Divide bottom into top, which means I take 8 and divide it into 3. In which case you say, but it doesn't really go into it. That's why it becomes a decimal, because you put a decimal and you put as many zeros after the decimal as it takes to get it to work out perfectly. Okay, 8 doesn't go into 3, so there's no number in front of the decimal, but 8 goes into 30 3 times, which is 24. 8 goes into 60 7 times, which is 56. And then 8 goes into 40 5 times. So 3/8 as a decimal equivalent is 0.375. Shocking and amazing, you might say. How about this? What if it was 1/9? Here's the beauty of math at its best. Okay, I'm going to, remember, it's the bottom into the top, so it's 9 actually divided into 1. How many times does 9 go into 10? Once, right? I bring down my thing there. How many times does 9 go into 10? Once. I'm going to subtract. How many times does 9 go into 10? Once. I get 9. How many times 9 go into 10? Once. And you can see this problem has no end to it. This is what we call a repeating decimal. Anybody know what we do for repeating decimals? Yeah, whatever repeats, rather than writing once forever, because that would take you pretty much the rest of your life, you can just put a line over what repeats. So this right here is what the answer to this would be. That says it's 0.1 repeater. Guess what 2/9 would be? All right, no guesses, let's just look at it real quick. If I divide 9 into 2, I get 9 goes into 20, 2 times it's 18. No, 9 goes into 20, 2 times it's 18. 2/9 is probably what? 0.2 repeater. Guess what 3/9 is, which is the same as a third?
3 repeater.
Yep, it's 0.3 repeater. Guess what 4/9 is?
4 repeater.
9/9?
1.
8/9? 0.8 repeater. Sometimes they even get more goofy, like, what about 1/7? Here's where life gets all crazy on us. How many times does 7 go into 1? Sometimes they don't repeat for a long, long time. I don't know how long this is. I don't think I've done this in a while. 1 goes into 10, or 7 goes into 10 once, with 7. 7 goes into 30 4 times, which is 28. 7 goes into 20.
4.
What?
10.
2 times, which is 14. 7 goes into 60. 8 times, which is 56, right? 7 goes into 40.
5 times.
5 times, which is 35, so I get a 5. 7 goes into 50. 7 times, which is 49. Oh, wait! 7 goes into 10. 1 time. 7 goes into 30. 4 times. What repeats? 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7. 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7. 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7. You can do that forever, but since we have the little line, we just put a line over everything that repeats, which would be that. 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7 repeats over and over again. So if we had a coin that was 1/7 of a dollar, it would be worth 14 cents. That's about it. Again, remember, if the fraction is something like this, you get your choice. If it's a fraction that goes evenly into 10 or 100, it's probably quicker and easier to do it to make it a fraction of 100 and then change that. Like, what is 7/20 as hundreds? How many hundreds would that be? Well, 5 times 7. It'd be 3,500, so your decimal is 0.35. If you don't like to do that, you could still just divide 20 into 7. You're going to get that, but you know, you get your choice as to how you want to change it into the decimal. It's all up to you. Would that make sense? Did I give you one? No, that's not. Let's just forge ahead. What about this? 3 3/10 as a decimal would be 3.3.